Deliberate practice. Now, Vince Lombardi was famous for saying that practice doesn't make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect. Angela Duckworth, in her book called Grit, took this to a new level. She studied, I don't remember the professor's name, but he taught her about deliberate practice. It's different than perfect practice. It's deliberately measurable and focused where you're going. If you measure it, if you're focused on it, and you strive for 1% improvement per day, now you're getting the spirit of deliberate practice. For example, you can deliberate practice being a good husband, a good wife, a good parent, but yet people don't think about that. You can deliberately practice being happy. You can deliberately practice being an extrovert even though you're an introvert. Those are second half of life experiences. So the idea behind deliberate practice is, I'm going to be aware of where I'm going with it. I'm going to see myself first, my identity, then set the goal. I'm healthy. Well, now my goal is to lose weight. I'm going to give you a story about that in just a second. And then you use your awareness journal. And I don't know if you've had that yet, but you'll get the awareness journal. The awareness journal is that ability to be aware of something you learned every day, something you noticed every day, how you're taking care of, advocating for yourself first, and then what you're grateful for. So this is what deliberate practice looks like. I'm going to walk you up this stair step. First of all, be aware of your own awareness. Who are you? If it's weight, I see myself as healthy. And even better yet, because that still might hit the critical faculty and bounce off. What does it look like today if I'm healthy? Well, because you ask the question, it bypasses the scientist, the biased and unscrupulous scientist. And it's going to accept, the critical faculty will accept the question, what does it look like if I'm healthy today? Now you got your goal. But if you don't know where you're going, you will always get there. And that's the problem with too many people. They say, I'm going to lose 10 pounds or 20 pounds. There's no plan of attack. There's no implementation statement. There's no habits that they're stacking on top of something else. Habit stacking, by the way, and by definition, is taking a new habit that you want to establish and stacking it upon a benign habit. For example, every morning when I get in the car and I turn the ignition on, turning the ignition on is a habit that I don't think about. It's benign. But then the minute I turn the ignition on, I do a mindfulness. I take about a minute or two. I balance my systems. I take a deep breath in, I hold it, and I release it, 4-4-8. I create my anchor. I bring my God in. I bring my authentic self in. And then I picture my day. And I picture myself being my best self with my wife, my children, my clients, and the easy one is with my grandchildren. But that's how I start the day. I'm already visualizing who I am, my identity. Next, habit stack. Repeated states become enduring traits. That's a Dr. Siegel quote. If there's a rhyme in neuroscience, Dr. Siegel probably came up with it. But I'm going to habit stack then how I'm going to get to where I'm going. Then I'm going to practice. Where attention goes, neural firing flows, neural connection grows. Dr. Siegel. Measure. What gets measured gets done and ultimately be perfect. Mistakes get retakes. Now, let's put this whole thing together. Here's the story. The story is of a gentleman who lost 100 pounds without dieting, without a nutritionist, a trainer, magic pills, or surgery. How did he do that? Here's how he started. He said, I'm healthy. Now, he's a single gentleman, and at the time of this one, he had a membership to a local club like a YMCA. But he was very overweight, very obese. So he says, I'm healthy. What does it look like for me this week to be healthy? So then he said, I'm going to lose 100 pounds. And that's how he started it. And then he started the habit stacking process. So he came home from work, and he's a gamer. He's a big-time gamer. So he comes home from work. He walks into his bedroom, takes his work shoes off, and puts on his exercise shoes. Then he walks into the living room, looks around, walks back in the bedroom, changes his clothes, eats his fast food, and plays games. And he did that the next day. And he did that the next day. And after 2 weeks of time, if someone were to say, what's your identity? Let's Let's just call him Ralph. Ralph, who are you? I'm a guy who puts on his exercise shoes every day. He owns that. That's his identity. He has habit stacked that every single day. About a month into it, he decides, okay, now I'm going to come home. I'm going to take my clothes off, put my exercise clothes on, put my tennis shoes on, my exercise tennis shoes on, and then I'm going to walk out. So he comes home every day for the next 4 or 5 weeks, changes his clothes, puts his exercise clothes on, walks out there, looks around, checks things out. Then he eats his food, plays his games, and life goes on. But he's doing this now for 2 and 3 months at a time. So if you said, Ralph, who are you? I put my exercise clothes on every day. I'm always ready to exercise. That's his identity. That's as far as he goes. Now notice the incremental process here. He's getting better 1% per day. He's having new experiences which create new pathways. Remember, neurons that fire together, wire together. He's developing a bigger pathway to follow, a deeper pathway. And he's doing something over and over again. So he's creating a belief. Experiences lead to beliefs. Beliefs lead to behavior. He believes that he's someone who can change his clothes every day. But he doesn't stop there. So after he gets so good at just changing his clothes, he decides, okay, now I'm going to the gym. So he comes home. He puts his exercise clothes on, puts his exercise shoes on, gets in his car, drives down to the local YMCA, into the parking lot, looks around, and drives home. Eats his fast food, and on he goes. Then he started doing, okay, look I'm going to start pre-planning my meals. So instead of having fast food, he started pre-planning his meals. So he gets home from work, puts his exercise clothes on, drives to the Y, drives home from the Y, and eats a pre-planned meal. He just habit stacked again. Over time, who are you, Ralph? He says, I go to the gym every day and I eat pre-prepared meals. I eat good food. I'm cutting down my carbs. I'm cutting down my sugars. And because of all that, I'm already sleeping better. Notice all the stuff that he's doing. And after a while, because he's got all this down, he decides, okay, now I'm going to really take it to the next level. He comes home, puts his shoes on, puts his clothes on, drives to the Y, parks, walks in, checks in, walks around the counter, walks out, gets in the car, drives home, eats his pre-planned meal, gets a good night's rest. Who are you, Ralph? I go to the gym every day. I'm getting to know the receptionist really good. After he's done that for a number of extra weeks, he gets home from work, puts his exercise clothes on, puts his shoes on, drives to the Y, parks, drives in, checks in, and realizes there's a track upstairs and starts walking the track. And then after he did that for a number of weeks, he started lifting weights. And after he did that for a number of weeks, he started doing more cardio. So now he was doing both anaerobic and aerobic. He was eating pre-planned meals. He wasn't going home through fast food alley anymore. He was changing his clothes every day. And pretty soon if you asked Ralph who he was, Ralph would say, I'm healthy. I eat good food. I get good sleep. I exercise every single day. And after 1 year's time of practicing the same thing over and over again, and I didn't throw in mindfulness, but you get the gist of it, he lost 100 pounds. That's deliberate practice. And at the end of all of that, you realize he didn't do this overnight. And this won't be a fad. It's something he's done over and over and over again until the point it becomes a lifestyle change. Motivation is a quick one and done. Transformation is a lifestyle change. Habit stacking, deliberate practice, learning how to create your foxhole, principle-based foxhole that makes all the decisions for you from the inside out. Thanks for listening.